Hi, I'm Kelly. I wanted to put together a video on how to replace a clutch on a motorcycle, in particular, a Victory cross-country tour. You'll see my bike behind me here. Clutches are almost never covered under warranty. They're considered a standard wear item. It's something like hoses or oil. I mean, it's something you're going to have to take care of yourself. Um, if your bike is under manufacturer's warranty, I am not advocating that you take it apart and fix it yourself. That could actually void the warranty. So I want to be real upfront with you on that. If you do have manufacturer's warranty, follow those avenues first, pay the money to get it done. However, feel free to watch the video and kind of know what you're getting yourself into because it's not a complicated process. So I really want you to understand what that is. Let's talk a little bit about what a clutch does. A clutch is designed to gently engage power from the engine to the rear wheel. In order to do that, it must be able to slip and stick, right? So it's designed in such a way that it's got a bunch of fibers that go up against steel plates. So there's fiber plates and friction plates, and steel plates. And when spring pressure is put on them, they bind, and when the spring pressure is released, they float. So I've got a video here that actually kind of shows how that works. As you can see, there are several friction plates. These have small Kevlar or carbon fiber pads on them for grip. In this illustration, the center of these friction plates have teeth that lock with the clutch shaft of the bike. In between each of these are steel plates that give the friction pads something to grip and slip against. These outer sections of the plates lock in with the clutch basket. This assembly of discs is also known as the clutch pack. When they are all locked together, the engine drives the rear wheel of the bike. When they're forced apart, the engine is disengaged from the rear wheel, so they don't operate together. The engine can run without the rear wheel being driven. To force the pack together, spring pressure is applied to the pressure plate. In this example, it's multiple coil springs that are used. That should give the most basic understanding of how a clutch really works. For the rest of this, I'm actually going to be talking specifically about my Victory cross-country tour behind me and how that works and how that all gets together. Things you're going to require: a clean place to work. You're going to actually need some place that's not filthy and hopefully not on the side of the road. You do want to be able to actually open this thing up and not put a whole bunch of debris inside your engine. That's always a bad deal. Okay, the next is a service manual for your bike. Like, you will want to know what you're supposed to be doing, and a service manual is the greatest way to actually know how to take it apart, how to put it together, and it will have all of the measurements for you. So in this particular case, I'll give you the measurements for torque settings and stuff when we're talking about it. But generally speaking, you do want to have that kind of information at hand. Okay. You'll want a brand new clutch pack, right? You'll want to actually have a full set of clutch plates ready to go. You'll want a new primary gasket. I've already done this, so the only piece of the primary gasket that I have left, well, it's not even the primary. This is actually for the cam plate cover over on the other side. I've got quite a collection of these over the years. But you'll need a brand new gasket. Every time you take something off on a motorcycle, the gasket is compromised. You will not want to put that back on there. You'll want oil and a filter, so you're going to have to change the oil when you're done. You'll need a set of hex wrenches. You'll need a set of, like a socket set. You'll need some Torx wrenches. You'll need a torque wrench, some box head wrenches. Vice grips are helpful. You'll also want, like your socket set, some snap ring pliers. You will want a shop magnet, a pick, some threaded rods that fit into your primary. Those are all very important. And you'll want a clutch spring tool. This is a clutch spring compression tool that I made. And it's simply just a ring welded to a collar with a threaded rod in the center, a bolt in the center, that allows me to tighten up and force the spring down so that it comes off and I can actually work on things. So this is the simplest. You can buy them. You can buy them ready-made from Polaris, and I think Harley will make one. There's going to be several out there you can buy. I found it just as easy to make one. I just had a ring that I could weld everything to and put it all together. You can use a collar of anything and make it. So if you're handy with welding, do that. If you If you want to buy it, they're going to be $60 to $90 depending on who you're getting it from. Then go buy one. Okay, so let's go through some of the things that I've done on my bike. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is loosen the clutch cable and remove it from the clutch arm. So step 2, we're going to tip over the bike, which will make it easier to work on. Now this is kind of unique to Victory. The nice thing about owning one of the cross bikes is that they have great tip over protection. You can just rest them on their floorboards for this type of service. This also means that I don't have to drop the oil first. Now if you're replacing a clutch on any other bike and you can't tip it over, which you can't, you're going to need to drop the oil, otherwise you're going to end up with a big mess. The reason why I don't drop the oil first, we'll talk about at the end. Step 3, you want to remove the items that are in the way. So in this case, that's the clutch side, the floorboard that's on the clutch side, and the shift linkage. Also the plastic cover that needs to come off. As you see from the video, I forgot that until later. Then you'll want to remove the decorative primary cover disc and the small internal cap. Be sure to keep that sealer ring and the cap clean because you're going to need those again. Now you can undo the retaining bolt for the clutch arm, and then finally the arm itself, so that'll just come right out. Now in step 4, this is the point of no return. Once you take the primary off of the bike, you're committed to at least replacing the gasket. Undo all the bolts of the primary and keep them in a clean place. Now using some just plastic trim tools, you can pull off the primary. Be very cautious of the stator wire. It's going to be hard to pull off. That magnet is very tough and it's very prone to catching your fingers in there. Trust me on that. Now once it's off, just carefully place it to the side. I don't unhook it, but if you wanted to unhook the stator wire first so that you can remove it all the way, you can. Now what you're going to want to do is remove the old gasket completely. This means you're going to have to use some sort of blade to kind of clean off around the outer edge, and that's very important to get that done exactly the way it's supposed to be done. Now use the snap ring pliers to remove the center portion of the clutch basket. You'll need to connect the puller through there. Now remove the spindle from the center and run the bolt section of your puller through it. Now replace the center with the bolt added. Once it's in place, now you can tighten down the nut. And as you can see, I just used a set of vice grips to hold the bottom while I tighten down the nut. This will compress the spring enough to remove it and the compression plate from the clutch pack. Now, I just use a shop magnet and a pick, and then I remove all of the plates from the bike. And you got to make sure you get them all, because there's a judder spring in there and there's a judder ring. Like, you want to get all of those plates and springs and everything out of there. Now you're going to replace the clutch pack. Now this is where I wanted to talk a little bit about these. It's very important that you do this right. So inside the clutch, there is, like we said before in the diagram, there's the fibers. Now this is the old pack. Okay, so these are the friction plates with the little pads on them, and you can see very clearly that the pads are right here. And then these are the steel plates. Okay. Now what they don't tell you is that each one of these has a sharp edge and a round edge. So when you first get these, you're going to want to soak them overnight. But before you even do that, be sure that you actually mark which ones are which. You need to be able to feel that they are sharp on top, round on the bottom. And as a matter of fact, that's exactly the way it's supposed to go. As you're putting in the steels, all of the sharp edges are going to go up and towards you, and all of the sharp edges for the friction plates are going to go down and away. Now, when you're putting these things in, there is these specific ones that come out first. I want to be real clear on this. This short one, okay, so this is thinner than the regular friction plates, but it's still like its own thing, right? That plate right there needs to have one of these rings inside, and one of these rings is actually dished. So this is really hard to see, but if you can see, this one here is flat, and this one here is dished. And you're going to want to have the dish up so that it actually acts as a spring. So you would place this one in first, and then this one goes on the inside of it as the center ring, and this one here would then be dished upwards. Okay? Then you just keep following it through. So steel plate, friction plate, steel plate, friction plate, steel plate, friction plate, all of which you've already assigned to the right direction. So you want the steel plates with the sharp edge up, friction plates with the sharp edge down, and you want to go until they're all done. It's very important that those are done correctly. Otherwise, it's possible that the clutch will not last, it'll squeak, or worse, it'll drag. So even with the clutch fully engaged, it'll still propel it forward, and you don't want any of that. Okay, so that covers off how you put it back together. Now, once that's done, then you put your pressure plate back, and that will sit on top of all of those, thusly, and you release it with by undoing the compression tool, and it'll stay in there. And then you take this part out, the center part, you go and put back in. It's got a few little snap rings in it. You use your snap ring tool to put those back in, and then that's pretty much it. Okay, so that part's done. Next, you have to put the primary gasket back on. Okay, to do that, I highly recommend that you use some threaded rod and cut it off to about 2 inches. This little threaded rod allows you to put in every second hole and put the gasket over top of it. Each one of the gaskets has its little hole in it that will sit right over top of that. And it allows it to stay seated while you're screwing around putting that cover back on. You have a lot to worry about when you're putting that cover back on. There's a stator magnet there that wants nothing more than to damage you. So you want to be sure to get that done right. Once you have those in every second hole, then you put the gasket on. Then you put the cover back on. Be very careful with the stator wire. You want to make sure that it's flush, it's even, and it's in the right spot. Okay? Once that's all done, then you go around and put into every second hole that doesn't have one of these rods in it, you put the bolts on. Then that gives you a chance to make sure that everything is right. You get everything massaged into the right spot. If a bolt doesn't go in, you pull the stator, or you pull the cover off a little bit, and then you can maneuver it to get that in exactly right so that the gasket is perfectly positioned. It's a lot easier with these little threaded rods. Then you just twist out the threaded rods, put in the rest of the bolts. You tighten them down to 115 inch-pounds, and you use your torque wrench for that. Okay? If you don't have a torque wrench, you're going to need one. It has to be exactly right. Go around it twice to make sure they're all set right, and then you just put everything back together. Once that's all complete, now what you need to do is run the bike. Okay? You want to warm it up so that all the oil that's in there is nice and warm, because you're going to want to change the oil. The reason is, even though you didn't drop any debris in there, dust settles. Okay? Anything that is just airborne that got into that engine casing will be heated up and put through the filter. Filter catches it, and now you can remove all the debris with an oil change. Anyway, that's pretty much it. I hope this was beneficial to you. If you liked it, please click like. Feel free to share this amongst anybody that you want. Thanks.